Is Trump slowly pushing America towards soft authoritarianism? To find out, I asked AI to generate two debaters, one defender and one critic. Then I brought in four AI judges to evaluate their arguments. Each judge scored the points from 1 to 10 across 10 different criteria.
Trump's presidency and current term reveal a concerning pattern of stretching executive power beyond democratic norms. Consider his declaration that he'd be a dictator on day one, to drill for oil and secure the border, language that normalizes authoritarian thinking even if framed as hyperbole. More substantively, Trump has systematically purged career civil servants who provide institutional memory and nonpartisan expertise, replacing them with loyalists. His firing of multiple inspectors general during his first term, watchdogs designed to prevent corruption, demonstrates contempt for internal checks. Trump's approach to emergency declarations is particularly troubling. While presidents have emergency powers, Trump has expanded their scope dramatically, using national emergency declarations to bypass congressional budget authority for border wall funding. This mirrors the playbook of leaders like Hungary's Viktor Orbán, who consolidate power through technically legal but norm-breaking actions. The accumulation of loyal personnel, weakened oversight mechanisms, and expanded emergency powers creates infrastructure for authoritarian governance. These aren't isolated incidents but components of a systematic approach to concentrate power in the executive branch. Question to defender: if these are normal presidential powers, why has Trump uniquely faced resistance from within his own administration, including resignations by defense secretaries and national security officials?
You're conflating political rhetoric with the reality of governance. Trump's dictator comment was clearly hyperbolic political theater about reversing specific Biden policies on his first day, a standard campaign promise format. Every president faces internal dissent. What's unusual is the scale of media coverage and political opposition Trump encounters. Regarding personnel changes, the Constitution grants presidents broad authority over executive branch appointments. Trump inherited a bureaucracy many Americans voted to reform. Career civil servants aren't sacred, they're employees of an administration voters chose to change. The Inspector General removals, while politically charged, occurred within presidential authority. Obama removed an Inspector General too, with less scrutiny. On emergency powers, Trump used authorities Congress created and courts validated. The border wall funding survived legal challenges precisely because it operated within existing law. Compare this to FDR's internment camps or Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus, truly extraordinary uses of emergency power. Modern critics mistake vigorous executive action for authoritarianism. Trump operates within constitutional bounds while facing unprecedented opposition from intelligence agencies, courts, and media. If anything, he's demonstrated the resilience of American institutions that successfully constrained and investigated him throughout his presidency. And about your question, the resignations weren't mere political dissent, they were unprecedented warnings from Republicans appointed by Trump himself. General Mattis, John Kelly, and others resigned specifically citing concerns about constitutional norms and democratic institutions, not policy disagreements. Trump's media criticism represents robust political discourse, not suppression. Unlike actual authoritarian regimes that imprison journalists or shut down outlets, Trump has never used government power to silence media. His criticism is speech countering speech, the marketplace of ideas functioning as designed. When Trump calls reporting fake news, he's exercising the same rhetorical tradition as Jefferson attacking Federalist newspapers or FDR criticizing economic royalists. Universities face scrutiny for legitimate reasons, ideological uniformity that stifles conservative viewpoints, administrative bloat, and taxpayer funding of institutions that often oppose the policies voters support. Trump's threats to cut federal funding mirror tactics used by previous administrations. Obama threatened to cut funding from North Carolina over bathroom policies. This is standard federal-state leverage. The real threat to free speech comes from progressive institutions, corporate media coordination to suppress stories like Hunter Biden's laptop, social media companies censoring conservative voices, and universities disinviting speakers. Trump fights back against an establishment that spent decades marginalizing conservative voices. His rhetoric may be sharp, but he's defending pluralism against a system that increasingly resembles ideological monopoly. Question to critic: if Trump truly threatens free speech, why do media companies profit enormously from covering him, and why do universities continue operating without meaningful federal interference?
You're mischaracterizing the scope and intent of Trump's actions. Trump hasn't just criticized media. He's systematically delegitimized factual reporting by labeling any unfavorable coverage fake news, creating epistemic confusion that authoritarian leaders exploit. His threats to open up libel laws and punish media companies through regulatory action aren't mere rhetoric. They're attempts to weaponize government power against press freedom. The university funding threats Professor Chen mentions reveal the pattern. Trump uses federal funding as a cudgel to enforce ideological compliance. His executive order targeting diversity training and his threats to eliminate accreditation for universities that don't conform to his political preferences go beyond normal oversight. This resembles tactics used by Erdogan in Turkey and Bolsonaro in Brazil, leaders who maintain electoral legitimacy while systematically weakening independent institutions. Most concerning is Trump's cultivation of parallel information ecosystems that operate independently of factual verification. By encouraging supporters to trust only him and his designated sources, he creates the conditions for democratic breakdown. When citizens can't agree on basic facts, democratic deliberation becomes impossible. Media companies may profit from Trump coverage, but that doesn't negate the damage his systematic delegitimization campaign inflicts on informed public discourse. About your question, media companies profit precisely because Trump generates engagement through controversy, not because he silences them. If he truly threatened press freedom, we'd see declining coverage, not the explosion of Trump-focused content across all platforms. Trump's relationship with law enforcement and judicial institutions reveals the clearest authoritarian pattern. His attempts to pressure the Department of Justice to investigate political opponents, including his call to Georgia's Secretary of State to find 11,780 votes, demonstrate willingness to corrupt legal processes for political gain. His pardoning of associates like Michael Flynn and Paul Manafort signals that loyalty to Trump provides immunity from legal consequences. Trump's judicial appointments strategy goes beyond normal partisan consideration. By appointing judges based primarily on personal loyalty and specific ideological commitments rather than broader legal qualifications, he's attempted to capture the judiciary. His public attacks on judges who rule against him, calling them so-called judges, or questioning their legitimacy, undermine judicial independence that democracy requires. The January 6 events crystallized this pattern. When legal and electoral institutions rejected his claims, Trump encouraged supporters to pressure Congress directly. His refusal to accept electoral defeat and systematic spreading of election fraud claims, despite losing over 60 court cases, demonstrates contempt for institutional authority. These actions mirror strategies used by Chavez in Venezuela, maintaining electoral participation while systematically weakening institutions that might constrain executive power. Question to defender: How do you reconcile Trump's claims of election fraud with the fact that his own Department of Homeland Security called 2020 the most secure election in American history?
You're misrepresenting both the context and the precedent. The Georgia phone call occurred during legitimate dispute resolution. Trump believed the election had irregularities and sought legal remedies. Presidents routinely communicate with state officials about federal concerns. His legal challenges, while ultimately unsuccessful, operated through constitutional processes. Courts heard his cases and ruled exactly how the system should work. Presidential pardons, while controversial, represent explicit constitutional authority. Obama commuted sentences for drug dealers. Clinton pardoned Mark Rich after his wife donated to Democrats. Trump's pardons fell within historical norms, even if politically charged. Regarding judicial appointments, every president appoints ideologically aligned judges. That's why the Federalist Society and liberal legal organizations exist. Trump appointed qualified judges who happened to share his constitutional philosophy. FDR threatened to pack the Supreme Court when it opposed his agenda. Trump worked within existing appointment processes. January 6th represents a riot by individual actors, not a systematic coup attempt. Trump called for peaceful protest and told supporters to go home. Compare this to actual coups in Turkey or Myanmar: military involvement, communication shutdowns, mass arrests. American institutions held, Congress certified the election, courts maintained independence, and peaceful transfer occurred. And about your question, the DHS statement you reference was made by Chris Krebs, whom Trump immediately fired for contradicting his election fraud narrative, perfectly illustrating how he removes officials who provide inconvenient facts.
So, I hope you got what you came for. Just a quick reminder, all the arguments and the judging in this video were 100% AI generated. If you're curious, all the sources and details are linked in my channel bio. Catch you in the next one.